What is up, everybody? This is the Omnic Lab. Welcome to our show. We are a game show that talks about the podcast. Gosh dang it, I'm butchering this intro. Welcome to the show. It's a little late here. We are a podcast that focuses on strategies in the game of Overwatch, and we help you learn through trial and error in a lab-like format where things get a little crazy. Sometimes they blow up, but this week we're going to be talking about learning new maps. And Andres and I are going to help you kind of talk about some various general topics that we like to think are important in learning the new maps. Mental game, like generic strategy, and just like maneuvering the map. And we're going to use Junkertown as kind of our theory craft map of choice. But my name is Rob May, and I am coming to you from the land of the rising sun after the sun is set, and joining me from balmy Georgia in late September is Andres. What's up, Andres?
What's up, Rob? I'm glad to be here. I'm kind of sad that I couldn't be there with you guys last night on the Hangout. I heard that it went super well. I was only there for one game, but I had a lot of fun on the brief time. How did that go?
It went really well. We had around 25 to 30 people at one given time, and probably collectively around 35 to 50, somewhere in that range, total members popping in and out. We had a lot of people stay for only a couple games and peace out, and we had a good core group of about 12 or so that would basically stick around. We'd have at least 12 to 15 people there, people rotating in, getting beers. It was a special shout out to Icy Sorrow, who had a crazy moment where we tried to sing and almost broke Discord trying to sing happy birthday. Also sad but true moment for you guys this week. But host of Watchpoint Radio, Overwatch podcast, Blazing Bob, was caught speeding on his way home and got a ticket trying to make the game night.
Listen,
and
guys,
has a picture on his Twitter to prove it.
I know that the Hangout is fun, but please do not speed. Do not speed just to get to the Hangout. I did see the Twitter picture. I'm sure that he wasn't trying to break the law or anything, but he was that excited. I'm gonna put it as a testimonial on the website. Omnic Lab Hangouts, so fun, worth speeding.
Yeah. But we had some pretty cool people that were able to make it. I also like to say we're able to make it because these things are not easy to always consistently schedule. And like I've told you before, playing from Japan is not something that I like to lord over people. It's just because it's such a pain in the neck trying to do events with you guys. Yeah, it was fun. We played through the lag, we played through the ping. We even had some people from EU showing up on the NA server. So thanks to you guys for putting up the ping there. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's Andres and I were talking a little bit in the pre-show that we've participated in a couple other podcast game nights and just other communities, and they always have these crazy fun game modes and things where Reinhardt moves 100% faster and everything's one shot, and then you just use fire strikes only. It's really crazy fun stuff. But with our show, everybody just wants to come in and play competitive comp style rules, real games. It's just y'all are boring. You don't have fun.
Although in a way it's kind of cool because you've seen some rivalries kind of spark. Some of the people that keep coming to the game nights and stuff, they want to come back and battle each other. And at the end of the day, it's not like ladder that sometimes if you lose a game, your team can get really toxic and kind of mad at each other. In the game nights, even if it gets sometimes super competitive because the people in the other team, and then you want to show them that you can pull through with your team and they're not winning this time. The match ends, everybody jumps into the public lobby again, and everybody's friends. Everybody is doing friendly banter, maybe poking. Maybe it was oh, you saw that deflect that I did on you kind of thing. And the other person will be I did see that, but you saw that flashbang I got on you the other time. So it's kind of a really cool competitive environment and stuff. I really enjoy the game nights because of that.
Let me tell you, Andres, when you were playing and when I was playing, Doesn't matter whose team it was. Every team I played with was raging about Genji Reflect always being up. So it's a consistent problem.
There you go. Nailed it.
Now, Andres, you please explain to the group what happened when you had your one game with me that you ended up winning, but
Listen,
really
won?
Won?
I would rather not talk about that. We can move on to the next topic. We did win that game, but Rob was dirty with his Lucio. Keep booping me off the map. You and Icy
twice.
You and Icy just kept sleep darting me the entire match, and you kept booping me all over the place.
I almost booped off McCree a couple times too, but man, the new, like, ever since Lucio Bow, I've been trying to like do those really janky like positioning, like, you know how you're like not aiming at the character, just like trajectory wise, you're trying to point your crosshairs at a certain position where you want them to go rather than what you're trying to hit. So it's really weird, but it does work.
It does,
and even on console, yeah.
There you go, Lucio Ball actually adding to your skills in the game.
Yep. Okay. I think it's time that we move on. So we're going to go to the news section. And as the game night has been officially closed, we had it on the 29th. It was, again, these typically are every month as best we can. So we'll be looking to do another one in October. And if Andres and I both can't go, usually one of us will be there for at least a few games. I try to make it about 1 to 2 games minimum every time. But this is typically during my Velen's Chosen podcasting time spot. And Andres, you're generally there. Like, this is one of the rare occasions where you're not there.
I try to be there as much as I can. I think they're really fun. And if you guys haven't experienced a hangout, I definitely encourage you to come and do it. Like Rob said, we do it at the end of every month, usually on Friday nights. So just count on that. End of the month, Friday night, the last Friday of the month.
Generally.
Yeah, they're really fun. I try to be there as much as possible. I really enjoy hanging out with the listeners and all the other people. I get to meet them for a little bit. Some people keep coming to them, so we end up becoming like good friends. I don't know. It's really fun.
I forgot to highlight this, but there's two more things on this that I think would be really cool for you guys at home listening. One of them is more of something about us, Andres. I had a guy come in and say that he marathoned 71 episodes of our show in 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
And he's level 45 and he had 2 weeks off work and was just like, I was like, how do you learn anything? That's like cramming for a test and like remembering exactly nothing.
Hey, that's a new record. We got to take a picture of that guy hanging on the wall.
That is some dedication, man. So
I appreciate.
Thank you for listening.
I appreciate you listening.
I really appreciate it. You may not. You may need to just re-download a lot of those episodes when you forget, because I know that not just to download the show because we like the stats, but you're very likely to forget a lot of the stuff that you learned if you're going that fast. The other thing is we had a couple players that were mentioning over the course of the last 3 game nights in particular that they were bronze or silver players playing with a lot of our players like Andres, who are kind of your buddies that you used to play with in Masters or low upper diamond. We have a lot of very good players that come in, and also a lot of average players and below average players. And what a lot of people have been telling me in our community is that we try to only have the people setting up the games to make sure that games are fair, even after we have team captains on the teams and whatnot. Evenly distribute the rank, and everyone else typically just doesn't look at what your rank is. So there's no rank distribution, like judgments. Everybody is just equal. Like, we had a couple guys in Masters that I talked with that said there are some people that are like very clear glaring issues, and they're really willing to kind of let you know, and they kind of left the game night a little bit too quickly to kind of get that tips and help from the upper tier players. But basically telling him, he's like, look, you're playing way too much into this style and it leaves your team out in the dust. And if you change this one thing, you can probably jump 2 tiers. Because this is a player that's ranked about mid to low mid bronze, and was really depressed and just wanted to have some fun. And so jumped into the game night and saw how he felt very outclassed. And I don't want people to feel outclassed, but I want them to kind of experience where the the skill gap is in the game, and try to learn alongside people, because you can learn a lot in a very short amount of time, typically when you're playing with better people. Like, I know we've said this on a number of shows. Andres, I think we even said this in the very first episode of Omnic Lab. It's just the best way to get better is to A, play a lot, and B, to play with people better than you.
That is true. And in the game nights, you will find that kind of hodgepodge. And unlike the matchmaker, where you will probably get matched with other people around your rank, you know, sometimes it doesn't happen that way. But most of the time, you get people that are like very close to you. But in the game night, you could have sometimes like a bronze in each team and also a master on each team. So the skill difference, it's quite wide, SR wise, but I think that it also provides like a unique opportunity. I've also heard from players that are kind of like in platinum or in silver gold, playing with these other players that are like a little better than them, kind of like opens their eyes a little bit, right? Because like usually these players are playing a little faster, they're not playing as or a little more confident in their moves, they're a little more aggressive in their play. But at the same time, if you take it as a learning opportunity, you can pick up a lot of things. And also, a lot of the really good players that come to the game night, they're very open to teaching you, or just like telling you advice, like, hey, you're maybe overcommitting over here a little bit. So it's a great place to actually get some immediate feedback.
A good teaching ground.
Yeah, and we've had players that are actually really good. For example, an example comes to mind with Yo Green Panda, an amazing Widowmaker.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that he was kind of stuck in like low diamond for a while. And he started coming to a lot of the game nights, and people were like, dude, your aim is so good.
Your Widow's disgusting.
Yeah, you should definitely be able to get to Masters, like, no problem. And I feel like that gave him a lot of confidence, and he ended up getting to Masters. I'm not saying he got to Masters just because of the game night, but experiences like that definitely opened the eyes of a certain stuff. We have another guy, Dr. Troll. He's like probably like the youngest guy that comes to the hangout.
In our Discord,
yeah. He's a really, really cool dude, super young, and his Genji is really, really amazing. But I think that he doesn't feel like he's that amazing. But coming to the game night and just having all these like high tier players being like, dude, you're really good. That's like a confidence boost, and also telling him like, listen, you're really good with your mechanics, but you're like overcommitting over here, and stuff has improved his gameplay at the same time. So just a little advice. It's a great learning environment. Everyone is super friendly. We definitely don't like any toxicity, and like we keep that to a minimum. But everyone is super well behaved most of the time. Anyway, everyone's having a good time, but they're also trying to be a little competitive. It's a good environment.
Yeah, we try to make sure that people that do join the game night are not just like friends of friends of friends, even though we'd love to invite people when things are closed, like smaller. But our show is big enough that we want to make sure that people are about the show, that are in there, whether they listen to the show or friends of the show, that are other content creators that we've had involved with us or we've been involved with, like Cavalry or Heroes Never Die or who's the other one? Watchpoint. And many, many other content creators out there. Like, we're in a format where it's just like people understand the vision of the show and they understand the vision of the game nights, and so they're willing to kind of put themselves under that to help us teach, and it's really great. So let's get into one of the biggest things. We're gonna skip the Omnic Meta partnership type thing first, because we're gonna get into that at the end of the news, and we want to talk about this massive blue post that we got within the last 2 days from Jeff Kaplan. So I'm going to kind of spearhead this one, but this is not a small post. This is a mega blue post. This is probably one of the biggest blue posts we've gotten without really giving us any peeks behind the curtain or announcements or anything, but it's super important. And I'm just going to highlight two main statements, and we can kind of discuss about it as a holistic approach, because I feel like these two statements kind of wrap up the whole. But it's basically Kaplan talking about people on a thread that, do you think Overwatch, do you think the Overwatch team simply do not have enough personnel or enough people working on the game? And the opening statement says, our team is comprised of 70 developers, meaning artists, engineers, producers, sound music designers, and game designers. And we're just north of 100 developers. That's when they started, was 70 in May of 2016. And now they're just above 100. So they've added over 30 new designers since the game launched in May. They're pretty happy with the overall team. They're not necessarily small. They're not necessarily big. Now, here's the statement. Do we get everything right? Certainly not. Quote, the 100 members of the Overwatch team are far more critical than most of you of the game on a good day. And in parentheses, although we're a lot more professional about how we express our criticisms. You will never meet one of us who says the game is perfect. We have no shortage of ideas of how to make the game better. And we are lucky enough to show up to work every day and try to make those things actually happen. The next quote. 2 weeks ago, I was off-site all week without posting access. I cannot make a forum post from my phone for security reasons. The week after that, I came into the office 1 hour later than I normally do. I was feeling extremely fatigued, and rather than waking up at 5:40 like I normally do, I woke up at 6:30. And the end result was that for those 2 weeks, I haven't posted at my normal rate. I apologize that it's been quiet for 2 weeks, but that doesn't mean that the Overwatch team, have not been working as hard as we always do and are not dedicated to making the game great. So it's kind of like, Andres, what did you say to me, like, when we were talking about this in the pre-show? Like, I feel like you wrapped this up in a pretty nice package.
Yeah, it's a long blue post, but my main takeaway from it is that they're feeling the brunt of the toxicity or the pressure that all these people are putting on them. He does mention in the article a couple times that him being in the spotlight and a lot of his other programmers being in the spotlight puts a lot of pressure on him because, everybody knows who he is and everybody kind of can blame everything that happens to the game on him. He said that his bosses have received letters several times asking for them to get fired and all of this stuff. So, it's a stressful situation that they're on, especially for developers who are usually just used to being left alone, developing their game. It's only been till recently that developers like Blizzard have been so open and so connected to the fans to the point where you can reach out to them personally. Like, that's been unheard of in the gaming industry for a really long time. They're definitely the exception here, but I think that does come with some drawbacks, and those drawbacks are the reason why a lot of developers are not as open as them. I don't think this is a post saying that they're gonna stop doing that or they're gonna revert their ways. Actually, this is a post reinforcing that this is what they're all about. But I think that he's doing a great job of being honest and also trying to let us see things from his own point of view, because it probably gets a little exhausting for him having to read all this negativity, having to constantly be receiving threats and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if he's gotten actually some death threats over a game just because, people are so invested in this. But it's basically him saying, like, hey guys, we feel it too, like, be chill a little bit. We are trying to do our best over here. It's not like we are evil scientists trying to make a crazy thing with Overwatch over here. Like, we're all super positive about this game. We want the best for everything. And based on his last few posts, I think that the company has kind of been enveloped in this whole fighting toxicity, trying to promote a healthy environment and stuff. It's been hard for them as much as it's been for the
community
players.
Fatigue almost.
Yeah. It's an interesting post for sure, but that's kind of like my takeaway from it. What do you think?
Yeah, there's this one line that I really thought was probably the best gist of the whole thing was, our passion and love for making is for making and playing Overwatch. Things like posting on the forums for many of us is not normal or a core part of our job. But from day one, we felt like we wanted to be a development team that communicated more openly with our player base. We try to make as many posts on these forums as possible. Our intention, more than anything, was to show a presence and to let you know we're listening. We're not naive enough to think that we can sufficiently address each player's concerns here, but we do want you to know that we, the Overwatch development team, are here with you listening. And this is basically just piggybacking off of what we talked about last week, right? When we had Toaster on. We're like, because I think Toaster addressed that concern exactly. He's just like, they're not really listening. You know, they're not really listening and doing things. It's like, well, let's back up. There's a difference between listening and operating.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people at large, when the community tells Blizzard to jump and they don't say how high, that's a problem. And it's like, well, no, you're addressing concerns and they're listening. There's a difference. The fact that they're posting on the forums on a semi-regular basis more than Ghostcrawler and the World of Warcraft forums or the League of Legends forums, as you guys well may know, that developers don't communicate like this. The fact that Kaplan goes in here and says between 2 to 4 weeks that he hasn't written a blue post and people are concerned that you're not listening is kind of lame. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, we haven't heard from Jeff. Papa Jeffy isn't talking to me for 4 weeks. I'm going to die. You know, it's like, lay off, dude. Like, just play the game. Like, just wait for the patch, man. There's 100 people working on the game, and they're intimidated because you're whining.
That is true, but like you said too, is like whenever people want to be heard, they also want to be heard, and they want an immediate call to action, right? They want their cries to be heard, and the next day they log into Overwatch, the change to be there.
Something's happened.
But the truth is, like, things like don't work like that. Things take a long time to implement, and not only that, like they're working on probably like 5 different features right now, and all of them have a priority, and to implement a small change would mean, okay, let's put everything else on hold, let's implement this. And I'm pretty sure that that's kind of what happened with the new toxicity and ban system. Is something that they had to like put all these other features on hold and be like, okay, this is getting way too out of hand, we're gonna have to pull a bunch of resources to address this issue right now. But then like everyone else is like, but what about replays, and what about like Overwatch League? Why are you guys not doing stuff with them? And it's like, okay, well, we want to do that stuff too, but we're kind of like caught up with this.
Got our hands tied.
Usually people's answer is like, well, just hire more people. And I think he also expressed this in the article, and he was like, listen, our team consists of like really amazing people, and it's not like you can go outside and just find one of these guys like hanging around the street and be like, oh, there, yeah, you're an amazing artist, or you're an amazing programmer coming in. You shared our vision for the game, and you are also a cool person. Let's work together right now. That's just not how real life works. Like, real life with teams of people requires a lot of coordination, a lot of organization. It takes a long time to cultivate a company as awesome as Blizzard and like the work teams. Things don't just happen out of the blue. You can't just throw money at the wall and make things happen. At the end of the day, it requires really good people, really talented people, and really committed people. So I think that all these issues, like, people just need to be a little more patient. I think I personally trust the Overwatch team. I think that those guys truly are doing the best that they can for their game. Whether you share their vision or not, everything that they do is to make that game better. And I'm pretty sure like this game is going to be here for so long. It's not going anywhere. They invested so much in it. Whether it's going to become the next huge success and everybody will be playing this game for a really long time, we don't know that, right? Like that's up to the people and seeing how everything plays out. But one thing that I do know is that the team over there is going to be doing their best to make that happen, like, all along. And that's kind of like my conclusion with it. Like, I trust in them. I'll probably follow them. I love this game. I love what they're trying to do with this game. Um, and I feel you, Jeff, dude. I've been in those situations before where there's a lot of pressure on you, and people maybe don't understand um, how much effort it requires to pull that through.
And everybody is a critic, and everybody
Yeah.
thinks that they're a game developer these days. So don't take it too much to heart. Overwatch team, we're behind you. There are a lot of things that as you well know, gamers are very opinionated, and they are not afraid to share their opinions and or demands. I much rather would put. People are not necessarily shy about laying out their demands for the Overwatch team, but let's just take a step back, realize that there are opinions and requests rather than demands, and we can move forward. And a little addendum or PS on our conclusion here is we are right around 35 days as of this recording away from BlizzCon, and y'all should expect them to be a little bit more quiet because something big is always happening in every IP for Blizzard. And I feel like those of you who are new to Overwatch and are not new to Overwatch, new to Blizzard, rather than regular like World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, attendees, they may not understand what actually happens with Blizzard games around this time. Like basically, whenever the last update is between July and September, when that rolls out, it's like radio silence for the next couple months as they finalize the last things. So just prepare yourself because it's coming.
These are the Blizzard cool. dark times over here. Like you don't hear anything for this month probably.
They're building the bonfire that you'll be able to see from space, basically. So let's get on the next thing. Here is the last part of the news before we jump into the Diva changes is the Overwatch esports program is now growing, and they're looking for more talent for esports. And they're looking for charismatic broadcasters to join an already stellar talent pool for interviewers, commentating matches, and analyzing plays. So you can email overwatchtalent@blizzard.com by December 15th. And they are looking for professional resumes, a headshot photo, video showing off your skills as an interview, sideline reporter, commentator, or analyst, and optional, a talent reel. And these are officially opening the 25th of September. So right now they're open. Go, 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 go. I will tell you that unfortunately I cannot apply. But no, just seriously though, like I can't apply under contract in Japan. I'm not allowed to apply, even though they're only accepting English submissions. So if you're looking to be a talent in the French scene, sorry, you got to speak English and you got to be good in your talent in English as well as in your Overwatch analytical, interviewer, and sideline reporting duties. And that's all we're going to say about this. This is a really cool opportunity. If this is your gig, hopefully some people that really like Overwatch are looking to break into the scene can get a full-time job because you're going to, if you like Overwatch, that's like an amazing gig. So go for it. So Andres, why don't you go ahead and spearhead here the article from our official partner, the Omnic Meta, aka SwitchFox in the Discord, doing the Diva patch analysis.
Yeah, so he has some interesting little charts over here that I want to kind of go through. Because after the changes to Diva, the playstyle of the hero has changed slightly. And I'm just going to start with his title. He labeled his article, Welcoming New DPS Hero Diva. And I think it's an interesting kind of like analysis here. Because he goes on, if we go down over the first chart, he does a comparison of damage block on the new patch versus the old patch, and it's what you would expect. Most of the damage block has kind of like lowered down a little bit, especially at the lower tiers.
25%.
Yeah, at the higher tiers, the damage reduction hasn't been that much, but still, it still is noticeable. You said 25%. Yeah, that's what he's saying over here. So yeah, that's
25 to 33.
That's quite a big change, and it was to be expected basis of it and on her changes. But here's the interesting though: her damage blocked has gone down, but her damage dealt and the amount of self-destructs have increased by a little bit. Damage done actually has increased quite a bit at the Grandmaster level.
Wow.
Not as much at the lower tiers, which is also an interesting observation. It basically, to me, and in the article it says it as well, it kind of means that her damage does require a certain skill, right? You can't just be spamming damage and stuff. Her missiles are one of her main sources of the damage, and if you know how to aim those missiles, you can actually cause a lot more damage than you were doing before, and it's kind of exemplified over here. Also, because of the same reason, getting your self-destruct is slightly faster, which also I think is incentivizing people to use the self-destruct a little more offensively rather than just to get the mech back when you are kind of like thrown out of it. One of the main things of the old Diva was that you always wanted to be in your mech because defense matrix was so strong. But now that the matrix is a little less strong, now that you can get your ultimate a little faster, I think that's having kind of a reaction on the players where like, hey, maybe I can use my ult a little more liberally, a little more offensive, kind of throw it over the fence and see who I can kill kind of thing.
And survivability, of course.
Yeah, of course. One of the things though that he does note at the end is the usage. So you might be thinking, oh, so now Diva is like this new DPS that is getting picked or something. And no, actually her pick rate is about the same across all tiers. It's only slight changes. It's gone down a little bit in the Grandmaster level. Sorry, it's gone up a little bit at the Grandmaster level. It's gone down a little bit at the lower levels. So it kind of evened out a little more.
No, you're right the first time. You're right the first time. It went down a little bit in the higher levels and up.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I was looking at it the other way. Yeah. So Grandmaster level went down a little bit. Lower tier levels went up a little bit. In all, to me, she seems a little more fun to play. It seems like you're less reliant on your barrier, and you can be more of a very mobile, like pressure tank. Like wherever you fly, you can put a lot of damage. So kind of make people back up a little bit, and you still provide cover with your matrix. It's not completely useless, but I don't know. This changes seem interesting to me. I like the direction that they're taking the hero. What do you think, Rob?
Some of the interesting things is that what people are curious about is the win rate changes, and seeing that it's almost 3% increase silver, 6.5% diamond, and 3% in masters. These are not big numbers, dudes. And I don't think that win rates are necessarily equivalent to what heroes you're picking. And more in that win rate has a lot more to do with just like how people are playing together. I know that sounds really weird, but it's like you can kind of do that, but it's kind of just like an extra stat, and it's also really minuscule. So it's just something that I think that Switch just put in here for people that are interested. I think he gives you all of the data. He has very little comments. Is like not overpowered, not underpowered. Obviously, with overpowered heroes, you might see huge jumps in type win rate, and that's like big smoke signals that there's an issue. But if things are minuscule like this, I feel like that's kind of just like working as intended. But I think that you're right, Andres, that Diva is way more fun to play. Not only are you engaging in DPS with an extra like damage ability, you're helping the barrier battle a little bit more. You're reducing the overall uptime of your defensive ability. And when you're jumping, aka your booster rockets are going, you can fire and use your new DPS ability. So they're basically saying all the things, you can blow every cooldown you have while you're doing the other things. You know what I mean? Like, do all the things, do them all at once, do them staggered, whatever you want to do all the things. And Diva is freakishly scary, but I have noticed that for me personally, I was playing her in a couple of games in the game night. She's still really hard to shoot with the spray on that gun because of how the spread works and the randomness. It's still consistent, but it's like that spray is really big, and you've got to be way up in somebody's business.
Yeah, you got to be in their face.
And so it's there's things where it's just like, why am I playing Diva right now? It's because I can do both diving damage and defensive damage. So you're going to be seeing people upping their overall damage in higher tiers because of the skill cap that Andres and Switch mentioned, because people are able to weave in their survivability with it. You know what I mean? Like, you got to utilize both the offensive and the defensive side of the kit, so you're surviving, you're escaping, you're engaging, and you're dealing with threats. You have to be doing everything correctly in order to be maximizing damage. You can't just be like pumping out missiles every time on cooldown for you to get max damage. It's just not how it works.
Yeah, you have to choose your moments. You have to know when to raise that matrix to defend yourself, because now that you have a shorter
priority, everything.
Now that it has a shorter duration, D.Va is actually easy to target. So if you're too out in the open or too much in the enemy phase with no matrix, you'll get thrown out of that mech real fast.
Yep, couldn't agree more. I really like D.Va's playstyle. I will say that even before the changes, D.Va was something that I was just not really comfortable playing. And now I still kind of feel that way. D.Va's just not in my skill set. But I do like having them on the team. And I really like that the defensive matrix is more of a skill-intensive ability rather than something that you just like stick in front of somebody's face and say you can't do anything for a few seconds. It's more of like, this is going to counter a specific ability. I'm going to wait until that happens and see if I can, time it right. That's more of like a Genji deflect, for example, but you're just like neutralizing the threat instead of giving it back to them and limiting what you can deflect or do. You know what I mean? Like you just can eat only specific things. But I think we got to move on. We got a lot of stuff to cover still.
Yeah. Well, the last thing we want to cover for the show is Rob and I were talking about Junkertown. And there's still like up in the air, like what strategies are the best things. But we thought about maybe just doing a general analysis of how to approach a new map, right? Not just Junkertown itself, but like good ways of thinking about a new map that can give you the advantage or kind of allow you to figure out certain strategies that might be the most useful for that particular map. So yeah, let's jump into that and see how we analyze the map. The first thing that I think about is the layout, right? You have to think about where things are, the shape of the map, how open it is. Is it like fully open where characters like Pharah can fly all over the place? Or is it more based on alleys and small corridors where things like Tracer or Reaper might be a little better kind of thing? Or is it very vertical with a lot of like places to stand on where maybe Genji or Winston could shine, all these other heroes? Junkertown in particular has a pretty good mix of all of them. If you see the first point, it's actually pretty open. Characters like Widowmaker, Pharah are gonna have a great time in this maps because there's a huge field that they can take advantage of, and there's not a lot of cover aside from a few houses. So it's a great map for characters that have long range, for characters that can deal with other characters at a safe range. I think for the defensive team, they have this huge wall right before the point where it's like prime for a sniper, right? If you put a Widowmaker up there, she has basically a huge view of the entire field leading up to the point. And you can also even snipe people that are coming from the spawn. And even on the attacking side, you can do the same. Soldier 76 is great for this point. You can cover a lot of range. You can keep the pressure up at all points. Characters like McCree, for example, would struggle in such an open point. You would need somebody like Reinhardt or Orisa to provide shields so that he has an easier time going into that huge field. So they're just like little things to keep in mind just based on the layout. Anything you want to add over here, Rob?
Yeah, I know, especially as particular characters, this is going to get even more into the minutia. Examples like Andres was talking about with the layout could be that not just in the alleys in the verticality, but in the angles. Like, how long is that sight line from point A to point B? Can you utilize that with Widowmaker or with Onoscope or with throwing in a sonic arrow on Hanzo, for example? Or is there limiting things that you can actually bounce off corners with Junkrat, like Junkrat traps or mines or Reaper routes or Tracer blinks, flashbang things, Genji walls that you can climb, even as much as Lucio walls that you can wall ride and dodge abilities. There are certain maps that also have environmental kills that we're going to be very integrated. Like Junkertown does have areas where you can get environmental kills, but only between opening spawn and point one on that far left side of the attacker's far left side, far right side of the defenders. There's also a bunch of random things that you want to utilize for cover in order to protect yourself. This is one of the things that I learned while playing Ana and Zenyatta, especially. The more immobile the hero, the more important the map knowledge, I would say. And that is only because that is your first line of defense, is not your team, but rather the environment. The things that don't move is the things that you actually have control over, because you have control over yourself and the things that don't move. And then you can start working around your team. Yeah, I think that, Andres, you're right in the head. It's just like, we want to try to give you guys a lot of general things and then maybe kind of alleyways of detail that you can kind of go navigate yourself. And analyzing these type of things, everything that we're going to talk about now and in the future of this show and in the future of other shows, the best way to go learn it is just to run the map with any character that you like to play and just run it. Go into custom games, fire up some bots, fire up 0 bots, just run around, figure out where stuff is, run a couple quick plays, run the arcade when the map comes out, run some comp when it gets in. Like it's in comp now. Like it's finally in comp. I would say just run it. Like you got to learn the payload. You got to learn all these other things, and it's super important for how you maximize your abilities and your survivability.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that you're talking about that, like another thing, aside from layout is very important to dictate what heroes are gonna shine in certain points of the map, right? And this is not to say that some heroes are gonna be like completely useless in certain points. Actually,
Right.
Overwatch, the team has a pretty good job of making every point kind of useful for every hero. With every hero, you can find some sort of like plays or thing that you can take advantage of. But definitely certain points are more conducive to certain play styles. Like we talked about, the first point is all about that range. It's all about being able to take cover from like the huge open spaces. So characters like Reinhardt or Orisa are great maybe on the attack. Characters like Widowmaker can be really good on the defense, just because they can take advantage of those playstyles. Second point is a little bit different. It's a little more vertical. So characters like Genji, for example, start to shine really in this point because there's a lot of places you can find cover. There's a lot of verticality and a lot of little ledges you can stand on and kind of like weave yourself around that part of the map. Same with that last point with the huge moving parts. Characters that can take advantage of that verticality will be able to take advantage of the point a little more. So it can just be a good rule of thumb, like just thinking about the layout of the map to see what heroes you might be able to maximize your impact with. Second thing that I usually think about when going into a new map is, where are the main objectives based on the layout? What's the location of the payload? What's the location of the point where you're trying to take the payload? Maybe what's the spawn areas? All these things are very important because they'll dictate how you should approach the enemy or how you should approach your defense. Attached to this is what you were saying, Rob. Finding what are the main alleys, finding where are the health packs, finding where are your retreat points, for example. Because once you get familiar with all of this, it becomes a little bit more obvious what should be the places where you should be holding a choke, for example, or what should be the places where you should really focus your efforts on the attack. Like, just to give you an example, on Numbani, the first point is fairly open. It's kind of like in the middle of a bunch of hallways, and there's like some sky that you can fly through. There's like an abyss to one of the sides. So it's fairly open to a lot of heroes. But the beginning of Numbani is all about like all these like buildings and stuff that you could get through. But nobody really uses those buildings just because they know that holding at the buildings leaves the point a little bit too open. So everyone chooses to defend maybe a little further back, on top of the alleyways and stuff around the point, so that even if they die, they have an easier time spawning and coming back to the defense. Same principle kind of on any of the new maps. You kind of have to see where are the places where our team is going to come back and reinforce us. Where are the health packs and stay in case the enemy team decides to dive us really hard? Can we retreat safely from the point that we're defending? Do we have a good vision on the main objective right now? Can we see the payload approaching the point from this side? And if they jump us, can we run away easily from this side? Like all this like circumstances kind of come together, and you kind of have to start seeing which ones are the best for your heroes and the composition that you're using. Anything you want to add over here?
It's a lot of those. It's a lot of those like understood things that you know on a lot of maps, depending on your skill tier, and a lot of things that you can see. Like what separates the men's from the boys is the people that pick up on where the invisible lines are of holding engagement. Where's the over aggressive line? Where's the too passive line? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you play in a new map, the beauty of the new map is that regardless of your skill tier, when things first start rolling out, nobody really knows what they're doing. So they're kind of just flexing where things are. And so if you can spend a few minutes, few hours, or a few days in the PTR trying to figure out what's going on, where you want to set up shop, where you want to like shoot from, stuff like that, it's super helpful. And I will say that especially on payload maps, you have to understand that the positioning is always evolving, and that you've got to also realize where people are spawning, because spawn kills are extremely valuable for a few heroes like Tracer, for example, or Junkrat, or even snipers that are setting up shop, making sure the supports aren't getting out of spawn, getting babysat by a tank or somebody that's going back. And the other thing is that you have to, a lot of times we have places called the choke point, or where things narrow down like a funnel and people have to funnel through certain points in only 1 or 2, 3 ways, right?
Yeah.
And when you're funneling through these ways, it's forcing team fights. It's forcing you to get in there and or get the payload through. And the only way to get the payload through is to be on it or around it, right? So when you're doing these type of things with a payload or a point, especially on payload, the area in which the objective moves is smaller, but it constantly moves. So you've got to basically make sure that your team is moving more as a unit. And when you're not in overtime, you have to know when it's appropriate to bail on the objective to get an advantage. And that is Overwatch payload in a nutshell. You basically have to know the constant tug of war between passive and aggression and defensive, right? Like knowing when to engage versus disengage. It's constantly the question you're posing to yourself and constantly the question you're posing to your team, because there are times when you sitting on the payload is proper, but only if your team engages. And if you're playing support, it's like this position is right, but only if these people are there. And if they're not there, then I need to back up. Or if they're not there, then I need to move forward. So there's so many different things that are constantly evolving, and why map knowledge is more contingent on understanding where things are and adjusting to the situation, rather than I always stand here. You know what I mean? Or I always set up my Torp turrets here, and I always put my Symmetra turrets there, and I always set up my shields on Reinhardt and Orisa here. It's very rigid to approach the game that way, and the flexibility is king here.
Yeah. Knowing the layouts and knowing what areas are gonna force you to those fights, just based on the surroundings, is very important, like you said, because it'll kind of dictate the pace, right? Like when the team is arriving to a certain area where it's a huge contesting point, where your team has the advantage just location wise, right? Like not even composition wise. We're not talking about skill wise, but just there are certain parts of the map where your team will have the advantage over the other team, and knowing which are these parts will kind of like help you dictate when you should engage, when you should disengage, all this stuff. The last thing I wanted to talk about, I know this is kind of short, but it's mostly kind of like our take on how do we go about a new map, analyzing the new map and trying to see what are the most efficient things. But the last one is basically more on the attacker, although this also works for defense, but it's knowing the flank routes. Every map is going to have a main course, usually where the payload is running around, where the main objectives are. but also every map has a lot of sidelines or a lot of unused space, which is usually uncontested. And like knowing how to maneuver through these spaces is quite important because it's the way that flankers, for example, can get behind the enemy undetected, or is the way maybe you're in defense and you have an ultimate like graviton. It's a great way if you know the back allies or back alleys to be able to flank the attacking team. They won't see you coming with a graviton, and you can kind of like pull them all together. So knowing like all these like side places is super important to the strategy as well. There won't be used as much, but there are definitely a lot of uses to them for almost every hero. Maybe your team got killed and you were the only one to survive as Anna. You have no escape route. You have like no jetpack, no dash with her, just a sleep dart, but that thing might be on cooldown. But maybe knowing a few of the alleyways will let you find a way to sneak out, reconnect with your team, and kind of like reconvene later. So there's a lot of uses for those. Definitely learn the back ways. Every map has a ton, at least 2 or 3 per point, and they will also allow you to reach places that they won't be expecting you from. So knowing these is quite important for your progression on the map.
And I have to kind of go back on a little of what I said earlier about being on an immobile hero and the map being even more important, because I don't think that that's necessarily true. I feel like it's just super important to know the maps in general. People like Genji and Hanzo have verticality that they have to take advantage of for their kits to be useful. Not knowing a map is limiting you in that sense. Winston having a verticality to where he can find cover is also useful. Like knowing where the skyboxes and stuff are even is useful for Pharah and Mercy, especially when you have Valkyrie. Like you want to know where the skyboxes are. Like just turning on your charge rate to being super fast for your ability and Valkyrie and flying around the map is really useful. Because you know where the skybox is, you can also know where you can like block your path of being shot and also where your beams can reach. Like there's so many different dynamics to how you interpret a map based off of a kit that you're presented, if that makes sense. Yeah. And you have 26 kits that you have to look at as almost like a completely new set of eyes in how you're interpreting a map. And of course there's going to be overlap. Like Ana is basically Widowmaker, right? Because you both have a scope. Well, yeah, but one of you has a grappling hook and the other of you has a purple grenade, and like lots of less mobility. So there's just like, there's so many different visions that you have to have and eyeglasses that you have to have when you're interpreting the map. And it's important to look through at each of those because as Flex players will tell you, they are the ones that are not learning the heroes in and out as much as the people that are specializing and playing just that hero. And this is why Andres and I always recommend people that are playing the game, please choose a couple heroes and try to play them a lot. Because the more times you have, it's like doing reps on something. Like the more you do 25-pound curling reps, the more inclined you are to be able to easily pick up 30-pound weights and move on, right? It's like you're increasing your reps, you're increasing your weights, you're getting comfortable with a certain weight, you're able to move on to the next one. In this case, it's the same thing. You got to get comfortable with a certain hero, you start improving on them, you start doing new things with that hero, and you start unraveling new layers to the onion of the map. So
that's correct.
I mean, Andres, you played and learned Genji, right? Like you can probably speak to that a little bit when you started picking him up.
Yeah, like compared to like learning McCree, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely like super different, and like the way you approach the maps with both of them is super different. I think that being able to play with both and have like a working knowledge of both of the heroes gives you a little better perspective on how to approach maps sometimes. Like I said, with McCree, especially if it's like really open spaces and I don't have a shield with me, I feel like super unprotected. I'm like, okay, I'm not even gonna try to do this. I'm gonna switch to a different hero like Soldier, where I might be able to sprint off and heal myself if needed. With Genji, if I know that the enemy has like Widowmakers, or they have like characters that I want to get to in the back, like Zenyatta or Ana that are doing a lot for their team and are getting kind of uncontested. And especially if the map has a lot of verticality, Genji's kind of starts shining over there. Um, but yeah, like it all depends on the map. It all depends on the layout. It all depends on where the heroes are positioning themselves. And just having like this critical thinking about the map can kind of serve as a guide almost. Because one of the main things when a new map comes out that I see people asking is, where should we hold the line? Are we holding too far in? Are we holding too far back? And sometimes it's more of a trial and error and also a matter of time. Eventually, pro teams will show their strats in tournaments and people will be like, oh, okay, cool, this works really well. But especially when a map is new, just being able to look at it with critical thinking, like we say right now, analyze the layout, analyze where are your points of advantage, where are the main contention points that the fights are going to revolve around, and also more importantly, where are the best places to hold certain lines that will give you an offensive advantage, but can also offer places for you to fall back or retreat if needed, so you're not completely overcommitted. And also learn the ins and outs of the alleys of the map, flank routes. How can you get to different places in the map that are not obvious? With Pharah, you can do that a lot. For example, in Eichenwald, you don't necessarily have to like go through the main choke in that first point with Pharah. You can just fly around one of the buildings and suddenly you're in the back of the point, for example. So just different ways to get around the map is really useful to get to certain places. A lot of heroes can abuse those kind of things in this game, like Genji, Winston, Diva, Pharah, Widowmaker with her grappling hook. Yeah, on and on and on. Even Junkrat with the double mine. So you can get really creative with all this stuff. But yeah, this was like a little short and sweet, kind of like talk about approaching a new map. We want to do a little more deep discussions on specific maps. I think Junkertown would be a good one to start with since it's a little bit new. We would love to have somebody here with us, a guest that has done a little bit of theory crafting. Hopefully, a coach would be kind of nice, a coach for a team. We're working on that stuff. But hopefully we can bring that to you soon. For now, we just kind of wanted to lightly touch on this, have a little lighthearted episode where we just talk about some news and stuff. And yeah, you want to add anything else, Rob?
No, I think that's it. Like we said, we wanted to make this kind of more of a diet deep dive, I guess you could say. A dive zero, as they call it. But yeah, if you guys want to support the show, the best way that you can do so and also to provide us some feedback is to go over to iTunes. I know that a lot of people have been asking me, do you guys read reviews here and here and here? It's like, no, there's too many places to check, and iTunes is the best for helping us so in the search results and all of that jazz. And it's also the most used. So if you guys want to help us out, go to iTunes, install it on the desktop, use your Apple phone, whatever, and go over there. We got 2 new reviews this week from Gosma 3000 on Australia and Tyler with a little bear emoji on USA. Thank you guys for your 5-star iTunes reviews. They are much appreciated. And you guys can go do that too. It does help the show and it helps other people find us, as well as give people reviews that they can read to see what the show is about beyond just our description. Additionally, we have Patreon that helps us get to places like TwitchCon. We had Andres, what was a couple events that you've been to this year?
Sorry, I was muted. So far, I've been to DreamHack Atlanta, and I was also at the E-League tournament over here on Turner Studios, and now BlizzCon.
Yeah, and BlizzCon is a huge endeavor. Like I said before, we are going. We have our tickets. We're still waiting on a couple other things to announce. About that, we want to take a quick minute to thank the people that are helping us get there at the diamond level. That is Ben W., Good Apollo, Lysome, Magic, Michael Kritz, Not Muad'Dib, RC Crispy, Ricky Ticky, Sketchy Nonsense Podcast, Tragic Zach, and Trinium, as well as a new patron this week, Luca W. Thank you guys for your contributions, and they are deeply appreciated, especially for these names that you've been hearing week after week, month after month. Those names are the ones that are helping us get to where we need to be for BlizzCon preparation, because this is a multi-month commitment of patrons that is helping this work. And we understand that it is a big commitment on your plate. And it does help a lot, especially for people like me who have to pay crazy amounts of money to get there. I'm doing it only because we have a good friend of the show that's helping us out with some housing for free. We have another person that's helping me out with picking us up from the airport, so we don't have to pay a ton of traveling fees once we get to the States, or once I get to the States, rather. And in addition, we've got some people working behind the scenes on some other things, and I'm going to be going out of pocket on a couple other things just because I really want to go, and I love seeing you guys committed. But if you guys want to help ease a lot of that pain off of us and help us also with other things like just quality of life upgrades, Andres and I want to update some of this stream stuff that we've got this year. We want to update it, even though I've created the brand and created the stream. We want to update them. We want to make them look nice and professional. I'm also going under the gun this next month. I've got people coming in 2 days to look at my house for upgrading the internet, so maybe I can start streaming. Would love to get some more streaming equipment for you guys and transition that way. Andres, there was something that we wanted to talk about together in our pre-show about something that we want to offer in the future for our patrons, but we're not ready to announce just what that is yet. But we will say that there is something in the works in the future for you as a patron beyond just the simple things we have listed on our Patreon. And we would like to announce one thing, is that on our Discord, should you enjoy using the Discord, we are going to basically try to revamp a little bit more of our availability towards patrons. We want to make sure that you guys can have access to us. We're going to be checking that a little bit more often. We're going to be digging into the suggestions. We might even be, asking you guys to participate a little bit with us. We're going to talk about some more things in the future, but we wanted to keep you guys posted as to some of the things we're thinking of, so that if you are looking to be on edge for a patron, maybe this is something that gets you on board. Andres, would you like to go through where people can find the show this week for us?
Yeah, absolutely. You can, like Rob said, if you want to be part of the Discord and you're not part of it yet, you can find it over at discord.me/Omnic Lab. Great community over there. That's where we host all of our game nights. So make sure to check it out. Also, you can email the show over at omniclabpodcast@gmail.com. You can send topics for us to discuss. You can maybe send feedback, suggestions, certain questions sometimes we pull into the show to have a little discussion about, since we think they're pretty good. So make sure to do that over there. And also you can find the archives for all of our episodes over on our website, omniclab.com. If you want to personally find me, you can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. You can also find my music blog over at soundcloud.com/iPlayMusic. And you can find my podcasting ventures over at audioblender.studio.
Very cool. And I also forgot to mention about our game night. We had 2 other game nights going on for Xbox with Capricious Fate moderator and Abnerd moderator, as well as CS, our Top 500 PlayStation 4 admin, and Xcalper 12, our new moderator for the PlayStation crew. And they had a ton of fun, and I was popping in and out just reading their chat and those guys goofing off. So if you guys wanted to join the game night, it's not just PC. We have the other ones. If you want to find me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram with the same tag called Not Rob. If you guys want to find Hearthstone, you can go check out my other show called Velen's Chosen Podcast, and that is velenschosen.com. And we are starting, again, some new things with Patreon on that show, which is some pretty cool deck guides and some lore moments about Warcraft if you're curious. And this week we're going to be having on a special guest from Coin Concede. We're having your buddy Cinder, Andres, who's going to be on our show tomorrow.
Nice.
So pretty cool there. Also, I'm still doing the Concept Craft podcast venture solo. I'd like to get that working, but yeah, to close out the show, now that you know where to find us and me personally and Andres, at the end, we'd like to talk about the world of podcasts and the Con Before the Storm. So the Con Before the Storm is a podcasting venture put together by Seraphis, Zia, and Ro, big content creators in the World of Warcraft community, and kind of people that have just know people that Ro's the guy that does Realm Maintenance, which is a big collective conglomeration of all of the other podcasts and basically updating people on what's going on in the podcasting scape for any and all podcasts relating to Blizzard only games. So what does this mean? Well, World of Podcasts is a organization that they've made that put together a mini con before BlizzCon. And it's all about podcasts and Blizzard games. And Andres, you will be participating on the Overwatch panel. And
That's correct.
There is some more information that you can find. If you guys want to actually, well, shout out to Blazin' Bob on Twitter. That's BLAZZINBOB. He tweeted out a picture of the event that promotes the Omnic Lab also showing up at this event with other Overwatch podcasters. So they're basically just going to do a big panel. Chairman V from the Overview is going to be the moderator. Andres will be on there alongside of Slambo from the Cavalry. Blazin' Bob will be there for the Watchpoint radio crew. And also Totally Drunk from Overwatch League Network and Heroes Never Die. And I believe there's Rosh from the Payload will also be there.
Mm-hmm.
And Chanman will be representing, of course, also the Overwatchers because he does 2 podcasts, I forgot. So those are all of the Overwatch podcasts that will be represented there for your viewing pleasure. And, of course, I will be there as well. But from the stands, I will be listening there in the audience. So if you want to poke fun at Andres, you can sit next to me. And you can join me with the Hearthstone panel. I'll be on that one. So you guys can do some cool stuff before BlizzCon. That'll be on Thursday evening. And all of the details as at conbeforestorm.com. Thank you guys again for joining us on another episode of Omnic Lab. This has been episode number 72. And this is the last episode for September. So we really hope you enjoy it. And I know this will be hitting your feeds in October, most likely. So remember, don't be a lab rat, be a scientist. We'll see you guys next week, and adios.